Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of What the FinTech, the podcast from the team behind Fintech Futures and the Banking Technology magazine. My name is Paul Hindle, editor of Fintech Futures, and for this episode we're joined by Daniele Tonella, Chief Technology Officer at ING. Daniele, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
It's great to have you here. And just to get started, would you like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself and your career so far?
Yeah, sure. I joined 6 months ago as the CTO and member of the management board banking at ING. And that's all I'm essentially overseeing about 17,000 engineers covering everything from software development to infrastructure to cybersecurity in all regions of the bank.
Excellent. That sounds great. And again, it's great to have you here. And thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. So on the show this week, we'll be diving into ING's technology strategy and how the bank has been approaching its digital transformation efforts as the rate of tech innovation globally continues to pick up pace. We'll dive into the latest tech trends in banking and how the evolution of technology is impacting financial services more broadly, the challenges for banks when it comes to keeping up with technological change, and ING's approach to the risk and governance side of transformation and AI. So to start off with, then, as you mentioned there, Daniele, you joined ING as CTO in July last year. I mean, how have the first 6 months been for you? Because I imagine when joining a huge institution like ING, such a key role, there's a lot to try and get your head around. But given how fast the industry moves these days, you've got to really hit the ground running, right? So how have you approached your first 6 months in the role?
Look, it was a phenomenal experience. I sometimes say I was born orange. I found a place that is culturally absolutely akin to my nature and my style. I found a place with a large amount of outstanding engineers. And even more, I found a place where you don't feel the divide business and tech that I had in many other places before and that I see happening other places. It's a company that is built around technology with a very high level of awareness about technology is not, can, and cannot do up to the supervisory board. And it facilitates enormously the conversation that we are having. So in that sense, yes, a huge vessel and highly inspirational for the things that we are doing and how we are doing things, which at the same time is a challenge because it means that some of the problems we need to solve and the journey ahead, let's say, not too common, not too standard in the banking sector. And we have to look beyond our industry and try to learn from others in order to really move forward.
Sounds good. We'll try and dive into that a little bit later as well. But I guess getting started, then, how has ING been working to implement new technology innovations then since your arrival? And have you seen any major impact on the business so far?
Digital transformation is a must for ING, right? So technology changes have been there for forever. ING has been one of the very first true digital native banks. And I'm talking about 15 to 20 years ago. So it's part of our DNA. And technology, of course, in the meantime, has massively changed the way we work as a bank, but also the way that societies conduct their own lives. Our customers expect, of course, more and more. They're getting used more and more to digital experiences on all platforms of the universe. And of course, we are responding to them with services that provide a seamless digital experience with all customers, wherever they are, whenever they want, and whatever they need. Now, that requires from us both to keep pace with new technology developments, both in our market and beyond, but also to look at what we already have and to sort of run a sort of feng shui of tech, if I can call it like this, so keep order and reduce to the max what we already have so that we can keep focusing on what the clients can benefit most of. In that context, obviously, GenAI is a subject. We have been very early on the exploration around GenAI technologies, and this always from the perspective of providing a better customer experience defined not just in what you see in your mobile banking app, in your e-banking system, or in your interaction, but also the invisible customer experience. The fact that our systems are up in the night is an element of customer experience if it's not just usability, for example. In essence, we want to keep going on the journey where customers interact with us in a personal way, in a fast way, in a relevant way to the context, and in an easy way. And that requires, of course, to keep exploring both new technologies, GenAI is one of them, but also to think and rethink how we deploy those technologies, because a fool with a tool remains a fool, and a bank with a tool, or a traditional bank with a tool, remains a traditional bank. So it's not a question of just deploying and dumping technology on our users, but it's a true question on how do we make that user experience different thanks to the technologies we are rolling out. And if I dive, and allow me to dive for a second in GenAI, there we explicitly make the choice of focusing on 5 areas and a number of use cases in those spaces is to avoid fragmentation and to avoid losing a bit focus on what we are trying to reach. The first area is a customer contact. So here we see a gradual rollout of GenAI systems both on the interaction side, so chatbot, but also in areas like transcript analysis, for example. And to give you a couple of hints on the impact we are getting there, if you look at 24, I mean, the first half year I saw at least, if you look at the Netherlands, we went up to 4% of the chat conversations run on GenAI systems to about 6,000 chats per week. We expanded to Spain. Now in 25, Belgium, Italy, Romania, Germany will all start to adopt those platforms. And here, two important messages are chatbots today answer about 60% of the inquiries of our clients. And when I say answer, I mean answer and complete. Right? So they really close that. And we are going up to about 70% in 25. Important to know also is that those bots or those GenAI deployments are always overseen by humans, right? At any point, humans can take over. At any point, clients can ask to talk to a human. And macro-wise, we also keep monitoring how those platforms are using this, because we believe that AI requires a very responsible and mature way of deploying, because we are still looking at some of emerging risks in that space. Second area, sounds obvious, is software engineering. There, maybe not for the reasons you might believe. So it's not about producing code faster. It is producing code too. But the real advantage of GenAI systems in software engineering space is to reduce the cognitive load to engineers. You have to imagine at our scale and our complexity, when an engineer has to do anything, from patching a system to deploying a piece of software, is confronted with a Mikado tower, half a mile wide. And as soon as it touches something, there is a risk associated. GenAI is helping reducing that load. So it facilitates finding the right information, the right documentation, finding the right spot in software where to touch and where to patch things, navigating the rules, the processes, and that reduction of cognitive load is a massive advantage. Then, of course, we go in other areas like personalized marketing. Everywhere where the customer is consenting, is giving us consent to access his data, we can target our propositions to their segments. I mean, an expat has a different requirement or expectation than a young couple or a Gen Z. Then all of these, GenAI allows to really target and personalize the experience at the end of the day. We use GenAI also in areas that are a bit invisible, but they are the nature of banking because of the trust characteristic of our business. Take the KYC process, the know your customer process. There we help our KYC experts to summarize content for the customer due diligence reviews. Right? You can imagine this is a very manual intensive work of gathering information from different sources. GenAI is helping the colleagues accelerating that gathering synthesis of information. On wholesale, right? And here I'm going on the business side, right? On the lending space, we found a number of cases. I'm making one example is a GenAI powered assistant for sustainable finance, so that the ambitions that wholesale banking has in sustainability can be supported and accelerated. So this is to give you a bit of a sense on macro, how we do technology and why, and then boiling down on one of the emerging subjects of, one-off emerging subjects of the journey ahead of us, which is obviously GenAI.
Sounds really interesting. I guess building on the GenAI front then, I mean, you mentioned a couple of things there, but what steps are you taking to balance innovation and risk when developing and implementing AI?
If I dive for a second in AI specifically, the bank has taken a very mature approach to that. And what I mean with that is I jokingly say we are conservatively aggressive in the sense that we explore intensively, but we have set a number of rules around this. And I can mention three of them. The first one is that GenAI as a global initiative is not in tech. Right? This is attached to a peer of mine, so to the chief operating officer, which is a profoundly right decision, because GenAI is not a tech play, is not yet another tool. AI and GenAI is a characteristic of business, right? So we need to think business in the age of AI. And that's not a tech game. It's not a plot. It's not something you throw in the data center and then suddenly you are deploying AI. So that choice, very wise. Second choice, especially at the emergence of AI, we are still in the phase where there is a lot of noise around AI, so a lot of emerging things. The world goes extremely fast. I mean, one day you don't have DeepSeek, the next week you have DeepSeek, and suddenly, all of a sudden, everything seems radically different. You no longer need GPUs. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it's just to make vivid how fast both the materiality of the technology is evolving, but also all the buzz and the hype and the marketing around that. Now, in that universe, we decided to focus all of our GenAI efforts into the area of the chief analytics officer, so the area I was mentioning before. And there we decided to have those 5 areas I briefly sketched before, and on those areas to focus on a number of use cases with a relatively strict governance on how do we decide what to launch, how do we track from a pilot to a scale out, how do we ensure the benefits are there, how do we skip cases where we feel there is no value, and in parallel, how do we manage risk? And risk has taken different shapes. Right? How do we manage the technology risk? Do we bet everything on one of the AI providers, or do we hedge across a number of them, for example? Or risk-wise, we have created in the chief risk officer area a function that is looking only at AI risks, right? Because AI is bringing new categories of risk that we need to take in account for. I mean, hallucinations is a relatively simple example. Or take social engineering. Today, we see social engineering on bots. So you publish a bot and somebody's trying to convince the engine to make concessions that you would never do. And because it's speaking in the name of your organization, that can be a risk. Or data leakage or elements of privacy, right? How do you ensure that bots are not leaking personal information of clients? And all of these required or forced us to be relatively, I would say, concentrated in the way we mastered. And last bit on this, I mean, AI is such a hot topic. When there is a topic that goes hot, everyone wants to play with it, right? And at our scale, with our culture, which is heavily entrepreneurial, we wanted also to avoid getting ultra fragmentation. So having an AI micropilot in every corner of the universe and essentially not reaping benefit and suffocate by that complexity. So that is the way that we are looking into AI, so far very successfully, we think. And at the same time, that allows us now to start opening the floodgates and letting more to happen inside the organization, because the engagement rules are clear and the frameworks are clear.
Yeah, and I guess on the topic of frameworks, I mean, are governance frameworks within the financial services industry as a whole advanced enough now to manage the rapidly developing AI landscape? And if not, what must be done there?
I mean, some basic rules are true independently from whether this is AI or not. Of course, Europe has arrived with the EU AI Act that is creating a framework, right? It's not so specific to really be binary to say this is allowed, this is not. That leaves a certain degree of interpretation leeway to company like ours. If you combine it with DORA, so with the other big regulation on resiliency, and with the need of maintaining the third-party supply risk chains under control, you see that this requires a lot of judgment and staying inside the regulations in a world that is going so fast. Probably that might be limiting here and there the ultra-aggressive approach on AI. At the same time, we feel that being absolutely front runner in terms of speed adoption, blind adoption at scale of anything in a technology space that is moving so fast is, irrespective from the regulations, not the best idea. So we believe that we are still in the phase where we need to think, prepare, and be structured and controlled in the way we adopt.
Attention all innovators in payments and fintech. The PayTech Awards 2025 nominations are now open. This is your chance to shine the spotlight on your groundbreaking solutions, visionary leadership, and game-changing collaborations. But don't wait too long. Nominations close on the 14th of March 2025. Submit your entry today to join the ranks of industry leaders celebrated for driving the future of payments. Visit informaconnect.com/paytech-awards to nominate now.
Obviously, you've mentioned there how quickly this technology is evolving. I mean, what are the key challenges that you face then when bringing in a new technology like AI?
There are a number of hidden challenges, I would say. One is AI requires clean data. So you can't do AI on data that are a mess. If you remember that garbage in, garbage out logic, with AI, you get garbage in and disaster out. So it's going to a significant higher level of problems if your data are not clean enough. And now the tricky element is clean enough is not just clean as we define, but is also clean in novel ways. So how do we differentiate AI-generated data from human or machine-generated data, if you want? And why is this important? Because the moment you start training your models with AI-generated data, the quality of your models goes down. So you need to ensure that the intake into your models does not get polluted by an intake of AI-generated information. So having your data landscape under control is a heavy precondition in order to really do AI the proper way. So that's one of the challenges, and it's an invariant. It's no matter what you do with the tools, with the technologies, with the companies and everything, if you don't have your data sufficiently under control, it's more risk than probably immediate revenue. That's challenge one. Challenge two, because AI is not tools, is not a toy. It's not something you buy and then you have forever. We need to start to keep an eye on the maintenance of AI models, because when an AI engine is out, you need to keep observing and fine-tuning and maintaining on the long run, because they're not self-maintaining yet, at least. So that requires a change in vision. So deploying AI is not buying a pair of shoes or buying a car, buying a house. It's deploying something that generates benefit, but requires maintenance in the long run. It's digital labor to some extent, right? So it requires maintenance. And these are some of the elements that need to be taken care of. Then there is the whole ethical space. Rolling out Gen AI is not just rolling out a tool that does something according to specs. It is rolling out something that has the capability and the characteristics of evolving with the quality of the interaction with the users and with the training data that you put inside, which means you need to avoid things like a bias entering the model. You need to ask yourself, what do you think is ethically acceptable and what not? So it requires a completely different way of looking at what machines do, which is moving the needle away from these are the specs, deterministic, input is 1, output is 3, input is 2, output is 4, to something that you keep monitor and that forces you to think at a higher level. What do I really want? What do I accept? What do I not accept?
Great. Well, I guess obviously outside of AI as well, I mean, what does ING's digital transformation plan then involve as we make our way through the first few months of 2025?
Without AI, there is one huge initiative we started many years ago, which is the one that is creating scalable tech platforms. What does it mean? We are setting up a number of transversal functions, activities, and technologies that get used by more and more banks to facilitate their service to our clients, and that allow us to get benefits of scale. That scalable tech platform project is moving neatly, with a number of challenges, of course, because the moment where you standardize some services into very different countries, there is only so much you can do. Sometimes you have to compromise a bit. But the scalable tech platform is a huge element. There is another element, which is the one of reliability. One of the the hidden customer experience, I would say, features that you don't know that you need, but you need, is that when you want to buy a book on Amazon, when you want to buy something on eBay, and you want to make a payment on ING, the system is there. It's quote unquote never down, or is perceived to be never down. Right? And reliability, especially in distributed systems, in highly distributed systems, and with API microservices architecture distributed all over the globe and all over third parties and everything, reliability is an engineering discipline that requires very active design, that requires very active management, and requires also a culture of reliability. So that's also one of the elements that we keep working on, because the evolution of the expectations of our customers go in the direction of always on type of sensation. And reliability is then not just on and off, but it's also the usability side. If you want to do something on your mobile banking app, you can't accept to have to wait, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. I mean, my threshold is probably lower, but anywhere above 1/2 seconds is not good. So how do you create systems that are up and performing at the same time? So that's one of the elements we're looking on. And the last one is talent. You don't build modern, advanced, innovative technologies without a healthy intake of new talent and upskilling, reskilling, or skill maintenance of the engineers you have. And that's the other big area that we are working on in the tech space. So the human side of technology, if I can call it like this.
That sounds great. And I guess with the amount of digital native competitors that are coming into the space these days, I mean, do banks feel pressure to digitally transform to keep up with these competitors down? And how do you manage this?
Well, as I was mentioning before, ING has been digitally native first. So what we see happening now is the neobanks, if you want to call them like this, are entering a space where ING has been for a long time. So that is keeping us healthy, of course, because neobanks think even beyond what is possible, because every place with a history sees a universe, projects a universe from what they know. They help us think beyond, right? In that sense, our competition is not a transformation competition in the sense we have a mainframe and paper processes. We need to have an e-banking with a digital experience that is long gone, but is really knowing what we have. So mostly clean architectures, mostly, and I say mostly because there are still corners we are cleaning out, mostly scalable platforms. How do we move beyond? So what does that mean for the experience we are giving to our customers? And that increase in maturity, more than transformation, is the real challenge we are looking into.
Excellent. And I guess as we move across 2025, then what do you think the key impact area will be in financial services, and what trends are you seeing at the moment?
I mean, the easy one is, of course, GenAI, with the impact on a couple of things, right? Because GenAI is giving impact on the one side, pure efficiency, maybe not at the rate that some marketeers claim, but it's definitely bringing some efficiency. And that's one element. The second big element that we see happening is GenAI is helping us better manage the complexity we have. So it can really allow a step change in effectiveness, if I can call it like this, because of master of the complexity that sometimes human in big companies have a challenge to master. So that's another element that we see happen. Of course, they move to a public cloud. And here, I mean, we will discuss more about cloud later. When I say move to public cloud, the focus is not on public. And the focus is not on a sourcing strategy. I do it myself or somebody else does it. Evolving towards cloud architectures is a transformation of the application landscape. And then that enables to go public cloud if you wish, or even to stay on a private cloud, but in an infrastructure that is designed to be programmatically usable. That is a big change of cloud, right? So when I say they move to public cloud, I really mean the transformation of the application landscape to objects that are designed for cloud native architectures and then can benefit from the speed and flexibility you can get from cloud architecture. So that's another evolution that we see happening pretty massively.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I guess as you touched on cloud there, I mean, what is ING's cloud strategy at the moment?
Look, like most large institutions, we are in a hybrid cloud architecture or paradigm where we have a number of public cloud providers and we have our own infrastructure. And then we have some principles on where to put loads, right? Because some loads are unavoidably inside the data center. If you still have a mainframe, I hardly believe any of the CSPs is going to take it over. And this requires a number of things inside. Some applications cannot be converted to be cloud native. And the conversion is not just a question of hosting here or hosting there. There are disaster recovery paradigms on your infrastructure do not apply on public cloud, for example, or that require to be redesigned for public cloud. And all of this requires adaptation. For some applications in your landscape might not be interesting or relevant. So you say, okay, I'll just stick to my data center. And then on public cloud, there are some loads that are obviously made for public cloud. I mean, things that have high variability of peak and valleys and consumption, or things that come and go and are very transient, or things that are very specialized. Then it makes absolutely sense. And then everything else can stay inside if you are mature enough, or can be moved a bit around.
Excellent. I think so on the customer side as well, though, I mean, how have their demands changed over the last few years, and how are you working to meet those shifting demands?
What we feel is that customers are demanding absolute availability. So whenever I need you, you have to be there. And I know it sounds logical, but if you think how banks have been built in the past 40 years, we were more built as process engines more than service engines. Right? And that demand of customers, be there when I need you. And I don't care if your system is down because of end of day processing, I need you to be there. So that is one expectation. They have a very high expectation on usability. And here again, I'm probably playing the old guy here, but if you think 20 years ago, our clients, maybe not 20, it's already 30, but our clients tended not to have technology at home. So we could inflict them any kind of process experience because technology was only what you experienced at the bank, essentially. Today, our clients, they are digitally savvy and native, and the benchmark of the service quality are the Facebooks, the Metas, the Amazons, and all the others. And if you think to them, these are services that are extremely well designed in terms of experience and extremely well designed in terms of reliability and availability. Right? Now, that's a benchmark. If I'm a normal user, why should I expect an experience with my bank to be different from the experience I'm having if I buy something on your favorite e-banking store? That expectation is significantly increasing. And then an expectation that we see has value is the one of personalization. If I open my mobile banking app, I don't expect to see anything that is irrelevant to me. I get angry, right? If you ask me to scroll twice to pass irrelevant information to get what I want to have, I'll do it, but somewhere in the back of my mind, my personal NPS doesn't go up, right? So I will just say, that's a cumbersome bank, right? So that be usable and be personal is something that has an incredible value in a digital world. If you think it's nothing else than customer intimacy, as any business had to have since the history of time, it's just that our customers are moving in a digital space, and the rules there are the ones of always on, reliable, usable, and personalized.
Sounds great. And I guess to finish things off then, I mean, what's next for ING? Is there anything in the pipeline that you can tell us about now?
We keep building on that scalable tech platform. In terms of visibility and usability, we expect customers to see more and more personalization, more and more help also to stay safe. If I think for a second in some of the downside of AI has the potential of breaking trust in any digital mediated channel, right? Because you can simulate my voice, you can simulate my face, and it's very difficult to distinguish. How do we help clients stay safe in a world like this one? And then we rolled out things. I mean, maybe a small example. If you open the mobile banking app in some of the countries, there is a button that says, "Is ING calling me now?" And why the button? Because we had fraud cases where people were calling our clients pretending to be ING call centers and then making them do things that essentially were not good for them. And today, you get a call, you open the app and says, "Is ING calling me?" And we tell you right now, yes, it's one of ours. No, it's somebody else, right? So these type of features are the things that we keep building on. So how do we also help our users and our clients stay safe and secure in a world that has become a bit more complicated in terms of protection?
Thanks again, Daniele, for chatting with us today. To close out the podcast, we have our now infamous Fintech Jails. This is where we ask for an industry term, buzzword, or trend that you've seen or heard enough of. Or, of course, you can advocate to free one of the previously incarcerated terms. So what would your selection be for this week?
I have a plea to incarcerate a word and a plea to free another one. So I would like to incarcerate the cloud word, because that thing has been abused as a substitute for sourcing, which is not. Cloud is an architectural design. And it's a much bigger animal than it has been abused for. And so I think that too many people and too many companies have just put a cloud sticker on essentially outsourcing, forgetting the true value of cloud, which is a different one. By the way, like this, there are a couple of other words that you could incarcerate. Maybe for the next time. And there is a word that I think needs to be freed from the J, which is agile. I know why it went there, but it's, I would say, is the mistake of the trial. And I think it landed there because agile has been abused as breaking from the chains, as a tool to break from the chains of bureaucracy, and has been, I would say, experienced as a sort of Woodstock of bureaucracy, agilism. Everybody's free, everybody can do, everybody. That's not what agile is, right? So the agile in the jail is the wrong agile, is a switch of person, right? The real agile is a very strict process, but is in essence a very strong empowerment of the people that do know and can get the means to make things happen. So I think agile doesn't belong in jail, but cloud does.
Excellent. Well, yeah, sounds good to me. I'm more than happy to do a prisoner swap, shall we say, this week with cloud going into the jail and agile coming out. Cloud, I believe, has been in before, so it's no strange to the jail. I think like AI, it seems to be in and out quite a lot. So we'll see later down the line again if anybody wants to come on the show and break that back out. But for now, Daniele, thank you so much for joining us for the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks, of course, to Daniele for joining me. As for Fintech Futures, you can find us online at fintechfutures.com, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with the latest fintech news. If you like this podcast and our other episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcasting service to get notified about future episodes. Thanks as well to Arama for editing this podcast. You can check them out at arama.tv. As always, thank you very much for your support, and we'll see you soon for another episode of What the FinTech. But until then, goodbye.